Streetlights cut through the empty forest road when something small stepped into the beam. Not a deer, not a dog, a tiny panther cub. It didn't run. It didn't hide. It just stood there, shaking, soaked, staring straight at the patrol car like it had been waiting. The officer slowed, confused. The cub took a few steps forward, then turned toward the dark trees, then looked back, waiting. When the officer opened the door, the cub didn't flee. It limped a few steps into the forest, stopped, and looked back again, like it needed him to follow. And in that moment, before he even knew why, the officer realized something was terribly wrong. Because wild animals don't ask humans for help unless there's no other choice. The night had settled into that heavy, watchful silence that only exists far from cities. A thin mist hovered over the road, curling through the beams of a slow-moving patrol car as it cut through the forest. Officer Daniel Reyes had driven this route hundreds of times. Nothing ever changed here. Same trees, same empty road, same quiet that felt more like a warning than peace. But tonight, something was different. It started with movement. A small shape stepped into the headlights. Daniel instinctively slowed, his eyes narrowed. At first, he thought it was a cat, maybe a stray. But as the vehicle rolled closer, the shape didn't run. It didn't freeze either. It stood there, small and trembling, illuminated in white light. Then it looked up, a tiny panther cub. Mud clung to its fur. Its body looked fragile, ribs faintly visible beneath its soaked coat. Its eyes reflected the headlights, wide, alert, and strangely focused. Not wild, not aggressive, desperate. Daniel's hand hovered near Ray. He didn't speak. The cub didn't behave like any animal he'd seen. It didn't dart away. Instead, it stepped toward the patrol car, slowly, carefully, like it was choosing it. He brought the vehicle to a full stop. The cub walked closer, then stopped a few feet away. Its tiny chest rose and fell rapidly. For a moment, the two simply stared at each other. Man and animal, both unsure, both frozen in that quiet pocket of night. Then the cub turned. It took a few steps toward the forest, paused, and looked back. Daniel frowned. The cub stepped forward again, stopped, looked back once more. It was guiding him. A strange feeling crept up Daniel's spine. He stepped out of the patrol car. The forest air was cold and damp. Leaves rustled somewhere deep in the darkness. The cub watched him closely, its ears flicking at every sound. When Daniel moved closer, it backed away, not in fear but with intention. Then it turned and walked toward the trees again. Stopped, looked back, waiting. Daniel hesitated. Training told him not to follow wild animals into unknown terrain. Instinct told him something was wrong. But the cub's behavior wasn't random. It was deliberate, focused, almost pleading. The cub took another step, then another, limping slightly. Daniel noticed it immediately. One of its front paws dragged just enough to signal injury. That was it. He made the decision. All right, he murmured quietly to himself, though the forest swallowed his voice. Show me. The cub moved the moment he followed. It slipped between trees, navigating terrain effortlessly despite its limp. Daniel pushed through branches and mud, keeping the beam of his flashlight low so he wouldn't startle it. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The road noise disappeared completely. Now there was only the sound of the cub's soft steps, and a distant murmur of wind from branches. Every few seconds, the cub would stop and look back, ensuring he was still there, not fleeing, leading. They moved like this for several minutes, and the forest changed. The ground became uneven, littered with broken branches and torn bark. The smell shifted too. Damp earth mixed with something heavier, metallic, sharp. Daniel slowed. The cub stopped ahead, pacing in a tight circle. Something was here. Daniel scanned the area with his flashlight. Nothing, just fallen timber, scattered debris, and a small clearing where a large tree had collapsed. The trunk lay twisted, its branches tangled like a broken web. The cub let out a small, strained sound, not a roar, not a growl, a cry. It ran toward the fallen tree, pawing frantically at the branches. Daniel stepped closer, still nothing visible. Then he saw it, movement under the branches. His heart jumped. He pushed the light deeper into debris, and the beam revealed fur black, sleek, and unmoving, a full-grown panther, pinned beneath the weight of the fallen tree. Its sides rose slowly, painfully. It was breathing, but barely. One of its hind legs was trapped beneath a thick branch. Mud and dried blood covered its flank. The cub rushed to the trapped animal and pressed his head against it, nudging gently, urgently. Daniel froze. This wasn't random. The cub had come for help. It had found him. He immediately reached for his radio, calling in backup, his voice tight with urgency. Then he crouched near the fallen branches, assessing the situation. The debris was heavy, far too heavy for one person. Still, he tried. He grabbed a thick limb. It didn't budge. He shifted position, using both hands, straining, mud slipping under his boots. Nothing. The cub paced wildly now, darting between Daniel and the trapped panther. Its small cries filled the clearing, raw and helpless. Daniel tried again, muscles burning. Still nothing. He stepped back, breathing hard, eyes scanning for leverage points. The adult panther stirred slightly, a low, weak sound escaping it. The cub immediately pressed against it again, refusing to leave its side. Time stretched painfully. Then headlights appeared through the trees. Backup. 2 more officers and a rescue unit pushed into the clearing, taking in the scene instantly. No one spoke much. There wasn't time. They moved into action. Hands grabbed branches. Tools were brought in. One officer stabilized the trunk, while another cut away smaller limbs. Daniel positioned himself near the trapped leg, ready to pull the moment pressure lifted. The cub stayed close, circling anxiously, but never interfering. Minutes felt like hours. Then movement. A branch shifted. Another lifted. The weight began to release. Now, Daniel urged. They pulled. The trapped panther jerked suddenly, then slid free with a heavy thud into the mud. For a moment it didn't move. Everyone froze. Then its chest rose. A slow breath. Another. Alive. The cub rushed forward, pressing against the adult's neck, rubbing its head repeatedly. The panther blinked, dazed but conscious, its eyes flicking toward Daniel and the others. No aggression, only exhaustion. The rescue team moved carefully, checking injuries, wrapping the leg, ensuring the animal could stand. The panther tried once, stumbled, then steadied itself. The cub stayed glued to its side. Daniel crouched a few feet away, watching quietly. There was a moment then, a strange, silent exchange. The adult panther lifted its head and looked directly at him, not as prey, not as a threat, as something else. Recognition. The forest began to lighten slowly as dawn approached. The mist thinned. Birds started to stir somewhere in the distance. The team backed away, giving space. The adult panther stood fully now, testing its weight. It was injured, but stable. The cub brushed against its side, tail flicking nervously. For a few seconds, they just stood there. Then the adult turned toward the forest. It took a slow step. Then another. The cub followed, but paused. It looked back. Daniel was still kneeling, watching. The cub held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly it walked back toward him. Daniel didn't move. The tiny panther approached, stopping just a few feet away. Its eyes were calmer now. No panic, no fear. It simply sat, watching him. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest, a mixture of awe and something deeper, something harder to name. He lowered his hand slightly, not reaching, just offering presence. The cub studied him for a second longer. Then it stood, turned, and ran back to its mother. Together, they disappeared into the trees. The forest swallowed them. Silence returned. Daniel remained there for a moment, staring into the empty space where they'd vanished. One of the officers exhaled softly behind him. Another shook his head, still processing. No one spoke. They didn't need to. They had all seen it. A wild animal, a predator, had trusted a human enough to seek help. A cub had crossed the invisible boundary between instinct and survival, choosing cooperation over fear, because it had no other choice, because something mattered more. Daniel finally stood, brushing mud from his uniform. The dawn light filtered through the trees now, soft and pale, touching the clearing where the fallen branches still lay. He looked at the ground. Tiny paw prints beside his boot prints. 2 paths crossing, then separating again. He walked back toward the patrol car slowly, the events replaying in his mind. The way the cub had looked at him, the deliberate steps, the limp, the urgency. It hadn't been random. It had been a decision. Hours later, as the sun climbed higher and the forest resumed its normal rhythm, Daniel drove the same road again. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. Because somewhere out there, hidden between those trees, 2 lives continued because of one impossible moment of trust. And Daniel knew, deep down, that if he ever saw that tiny shape in his headlights again, he wouldn't hesitate, not for a second, because sometimes help doesn't come in words. Sometimes it walks out of the darkness, looks you in the eye, and asks you to follow.